It is the Blitz here on 94.1, San Antonio Sports Star. He is Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minnix. Shoddy time. RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com. Just based on tweets I've seen, not real happy about this, although tweet just now from bloggingtheboys.com says a closer look at Brian Schottenheimer's offense over the years. I think the tweet said his Shotty has a better history than you might think. Are you pumping out articles to make yourself feel better and buy into the idea that it might be Shotty time in Dallas?
Well, first of all, pitchers and catchers report in like 3 weeks or something. That's really all I have to look forward to from a sports perspective, clearly. That article was not written by me. That was written by one of our can't believe he's still an optimist named David Howman. He's a dude, fellow Sun Devil, so I'll allow it. Did allow it on the site.
You are the editor.
This is bad. I mean, like, this is. You ever see the movie Poseidon? Like, the boat's flipping upside down right now. Like, that's where we're at.
The boat's flipping upside. Okay, so look, we heard one so-called expert on ESPN, RJ, say that this is the perfect fit for the Dallas Cowboys because it gives Dak Prescott continuity in the offense. And, of course, it's all about Dak Prescott because we can't be changing offenses on the poor guy.
Yeah, you know what, Joe? It makes a lot of sense to establish continuity for Dak, keep his offensive coordinator, screw keeping the head coach and the play caller, right? Like, that level of continuity clearly isn't important. And look, I know that that's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing, and this might surprise at least Joe. To hell with whatever Dak thinks. Like, I'm so sick of, like, catering to him, and I'm a big fan of his, but, like, this idea of, oh, man, well, he knows offense, so he'll learn another one. Oh, well, he really liked Kellen Moore. That's great. I mean, he's an adult. Like, this idea that you have to acquiesce to the franchise quarterback's, like, demands is insane. It's also hypocritical, again, because they moved on from McCarthy and they've dragged Dak through the mud several times over by way of contract extension. But now this decision is the one where we're going to listen to him. Dak should certainly be consulted. I'm not, saying anything beyond that. But the idea that he should have a serious level of input on who they're going to pick to be the head coach is certain.
The reality, though,
smart today, RJ.
RJ. Well, no, and I don't disagree with you, but he is the highest paid player in the NFL. You've invested in him. You need somebody that's going to get the most out of him. I'm with you. I don't give a damn if Dak likes you, but Dak seems to like everybody. Is he the right guy for the job? He wants to call plays, according to Jane Slater from the NFL Network. Jerry has wanted walk-around head coaches and an offensive coordinator calling plays. And I'm curious of the other Jane Slater report because he's interviewing for both the head coach and the offensive coordinator job. Now, does that mean that maybe he's not going to be the head coach? That maybe, I don't know, a Robert Saleh could end up being the head coach, and then you would have Shotty calling plays because that's what he's going to demand as the offensive coordinator. That's my sliver of hope with he's interviewing for both jobs at the same time.
I think Robert Saleh is probably the top candidate in Jacksonville now that Liam Cohen withdrew his name. So, look, I don't enjoy being negative, but I think that your sliver of hope is a fraction of what it already was. It's, again, also absurd to be interviewing Schottenheimer for the offensive coordinator position. If he's old, first of all, he already had that job.
So his contract expired. You got to re-interview for your job, sir.
Yeah, but maybe interview with the guy who'll be your boss. And I know we'll all say, like, oh, well, that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, so imagine, you're like the head coach is going to be Jason Minnix. And, hey, check it out. Already interviewed and hired your offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. This isn't a Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett thing. He's just here. He's our figurehead. We actually, though, do have a Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett thing going on with a different guy who's going to be on your staff than Jason Witten. And that's why, like, even having these conversations about Brian Schottenheimer, quite frankly, feels pretty stupid to me because we all know that he's just a placeholder. We all know he's a bridge. We don't have to waste brain cells, thinking about his offense and how he's going to call it. All he is an hourglass that we're flipping upside down. and we're watching the grains of sand drop and drop and drop until Jason Witten is given the special crown royal prince treatment because the Joneses have smiled upon him.
Well, you know, that's and I agree with you, RJ. I think that is the bottom line. This is a bridge. The problem is Jerry's 82 years old. You know, that bridge can't be very long. And if you're looking to win now, you need to find the guy now. The hell with Jason Witten. I mean, and that's the problem that I have. And I look, this team is in bad shape, and it's going to take a while, I think, in my opinion, to get them back to even considering making a serious Super Bowl run. And Jerry's not getting any younger. So this game that he's playing, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It does make sense if you have heard the musical stylings of Frank Sinatra. He doesn't want to win, Joe. I mean, he does, but he look, I'm a big believer in, and I've told you both, that history is written by the winners. And in this game, Jerry Jones holds all the cards. He can do it his way. He would rather win that way than anything else. Winning any other way isn't winning to Jerry Jones. You're right. I completely agree with you from the standpoint of logic and reason. And in a world where gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared, but that's not the world that we're establishing and operating within here. This is like that scene in Interstellar where he's in the fifth dimension or whatever, and he's communicating through the library shelf, which I just saw that movie yesterday for the first time in my life. Pretty good. That being said, it is not about winning. This is about, if it can happen, if Jerry Jones can win his way, cool. If not, it all worked out anyway. He's already got his rings. He's already got his gold jacket. What more how much shinier can the palace get?
Great question. RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com. But I do think, even though he has rings, they're all attached to Jimmy. Jerry wants to get a ring, or more than one, but let's just start with one, doing it his way, where there's no Jimmy Johnson attached to it. The idea of the 4-hour or so interview yesterday with Schottenheimer, and today's interview, whether it's a continuation or a second interview. And if it's a second interview, he better come out of there with a contract, don't you think? What is going on in there? It's not like they're strangers.
I mean, I would not be shocked if you told me they were playing tic-tac-toe, if they were,
watching a movie.
Yeah, like maybe they're watching Interstellar. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of that long of a film. This is all just, like when the little girl goes into mom's closet and comes out with the high heels and the lipstick on. Like they're just playing dress up, man. Like that's all this is. Like they're just pretending. You know what I mean? They just have, an actual NFL team to play dress up with. And I feel badly for Brian Schottenheimer that he's the face of this dysfunction, but I don't fault him. That's where like all these fans are saying like, well, he shouldn't take the job. He should have more self-respect. Bro, there's 32 of these things. And if you're Brian Schottenheimer, yeah, you know what this whole thing is, but you hope, because hope is a dangerous thing, that you can pull it off, that you can win the Super Bowl, and then your life is forever changed. And there's people out there that are saying, well, Jason Witten should have more self-respect than to take this job. If you're Jason Witten in your weird convoluted world that helped you have the NFL career that you did, you believe you can do this. You act, and I don't fault Jason Witten for believing that. I don't fault either of these people for falling in line with this plan. It's absurd that we've reached this stage. There have been 3 head coaches hired so far across the NFL: Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. The Cowboys did not speak, obviously, to Johnson or Glenn because they weren't able to, because of how haphazardly they approached this whole process. They didn't get a chance to speak to Mike Vrabel, even if you wanted him to be the head coach, because that whole process was taken care of by the time they were done pussyfooting around with Mike McCarthy. This whole thing is it's literally as dumb and inefficient as it could possibly be.
Well, my question is, and even a guy like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, even if you talk to him or even throw Mike Vrabel in there, I mean, my first question as a head coaching candidate is, what are you going to do for me, Mr. GM Jerry? Are you going to go out and spend some money? Are you going to get some free agents in here? What's the plan that you're going to put together that I have an opportunity to succeed? Because Mike McCarthy last year had no opportunity to succeed. And what he did with that football team is a minor miracle, winning 7 games. So that would be my question. If I'm any kind of reputable head coaching candidate, what are you going to do for me, and what kind of a football team are we going to have on the field?
Well, Joe, no offense to the 4 individuals, I don't think that they've interviewed a reputable candidate because they don't want to face those questions. And, you could argue that they, grandmaster set up this situation to where they couldn't speak to Vrabel or Johnson or Glenn because they are reputable candidates, because they would have been laughed at. I mean, we saw that Aaron Glenn removed himself from consideration for the New England job, probably because he had, a sense that it was going to end up going to Mike Vrabel. That has never happened to the Dallas Cowboys, where a head coach says, you know what, I'm good. But it probably would have happened, right? I mean, Ben Johnson effectively said it through all the things he leaked about what he wanted in a team, and we're seeing that with Aaron Glenn now in New York. So they're not interviewing reputable candidates. They've interviewed 4 people, and you could argue that 2 of them were to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So if you exclude Robert Saleh and Leslie Frazier, the 2 people who they have seriously, allegedly considered are Kellen Moore, a former chosen son, and Brian Schottenheimer, who was literally in the building already, who is just a bridge or a placeholder so that they can get the guy they ultimately want. It's the laziest, most narcissistic, nepotism-soaked process it possibly could be.
Shaking my head because you're right. I hope that Robert Saleh was a legit interview and more so than just checking a box. I really do hope that.
I'm with you.
Out of curiosity, how on board do you think Steven is in this process? And I say that, we played a clip the other day from when Dion was signed to his Cowboys contract, and Jerry's talking about how Steven had to push him up against the wall, and you kind of feel like that happens a lot. We heard a very similar story about the Johnny Manziel pick. I mean, Steven grabbed me by the coat, but where is Steven to take him by the shirt collars and push him against the wall and say, Dad, what the hell are you doing here?
I trust Steven less at this point, honestly. And so I really don't care where he is. And I think that, those things and those stories are legendary for a reason, but those things happened when winning was a focus, when they were still building this kingdom, which is why they had to win. I mean, look, I've been to Jason's kitchen. I've never been to Joe's. But do you have an air fryer? Do you have anything like that? I imagine that you do.
I do, yes.
Everybody has an air fryer. We all went through COVID.
And why does everybody have an air fryer? Because it's easy, right? Because you can toss something in there. You don't got to think about it. It's super efficient, and the same net result is ultimately achieved. Oh, man, it's better. It's healthier. It's awesome. This is fantastic. I don't need to use the oven anymore. The Cowboys look at working hard to win championships as the oven. All of this is the air fryer, man. Like, you're getting the same goal. They're laughing at all of us who were like, y'all are so stupid for not signing Derrick Henry. They're like, that guy's at home too. He's not in the conference championship. I mean, we didn't miss out on anything. They know that the bottom line, the food that comes out of the air fryer is going to taste the exact same, and it's going to go the exact same place in the toilet with every single Dallas Cowboys season when it's all said and done, even if they were to slave over it in the oven or on the Traeger or whatever the case may be.
All right, well, let's skip the coach for just a minute and go back to the question that I would pose if I was a serious contender for the head coaching job there. What are you going to do? What kind of a team you're going to put on the field? Jason and I disagree on this, I think. I'll let him speak for himself, but I'm looking at a 3 or 4 year process here. I don't see this team being legitimate at least until then, and because they've got so many holes to fill, unless by some miracle all these young players that they draft turn into to good players. I think it's going to be a long haul. What do you think, RJ?
Well, assuming that he disagrees with you, I agree with Jason, because you're looking at a Washington team that is in the NFC Championship game after a year's worth of work, right? I mean, the NFL is a pay-driven league. It's designed for things like this to happen, which underscores how unbelievable it is that the Cowboys haven't even been into an NFC Championship game since 1995. It's actually statistically harder to be this consistently bad than it is for you to luck into a random appearance on a one-off year. And so, I mean, they could fix this. I mean, people ask things like, well, what are they going to do with the 12th overall pick? I mean, I don't know. Is that pick worth 12 players? Because that's kind of what you need. But if in free agency you go out, you address the trenches, you sign a corner, you sign a wide receiver, you pull off some trades similar to Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, all of a sudden you significantly elevate the floor. At the end of the day, there are 5 money positions in the NFL: quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, corner, and pass rusher. The Cowboys have 4 of those things in a general sense if you want to count Trayvon Diggs. They don't necessarily have a prominent answer at left tackle right now. I mean, those things can be a rising tide that lifts the boats around them. So I mean, you factor into that there'll be some regression to the mean for Washington. At some point, Philadelphia can't be a playoff team year in and year out. Thank God the Giants exist. I mean, they could totally win the NFC East next year without even really trying, which is why it's so frustrating that they won't take advantage of the players that they have already found.
Yeah, I agree. When you think about what they have, and it starts with the quarterback, and I know there's people that will debate whether Dak can actually lead this team to a championship, but he is one of the better quarterbacks, top half quarterbacks in the NFL. So if you've got that position figured out, the rest is a little easier to fall in place. You get another receiver opposite of CeeDee Lamb, that weapon there. You know, you get a Jake Ferguson who regressed this year. If he can get back to playing like he was 2 years ago, offensive line with a little more experience. How do you replace DeMarcus Lawrence? I don't see him coming back, especially at the salary that he was getting. But, you know, some of those guys that were injured, if they're healthy, and I know they're ifs, but
there's a bunch of ifs you're throwing out there right now.
No, all on health. But that's every team. Ask San Francisco. If healthy, they're pretty damn good. This year, they weren't healthy. I think the Cowboys have a lot more players than you're giving them credit for.
I think that's well said. And there will be regression to the mean in a positive sense for Dallas. I mean, this isn't, you can't like set your watch by this, but historically speaking, you know, in 2020, the two teams who were most injured or who lost the most games due to injury were San Francisco, as Jason noted, and Dallas. And in 2021, there was an enormous amount of positive regression to the mean for both teams. Obviously, they met in the playoffs and the Niners kicked the Cowboys' ass. So those things will happen, and those things happen negatively to other teams. You could argue it happened negatively to the Cowboys this past season on top of all the absurdity and chaos that they incited upon themselves. So, yeah, I mean, look, think about the jobs that have been filled already. I mean, the Jets were able to find one of the top candidates in the pool before the Cowboys could. The Jets don't have a quarterback. Sure, Garrett Wilson exists, but he's not on CeeDee Lamb's level. They certainly don't have a Micah Parsons. They have been the Jets for forever and might have a more meddlesome owner than Jerry Jones is, which is really saying something. Yet they somehow still got one of the bells of the ball to say, I will dance with you. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are leaning up against the wall like a weird wallflower.
Well, they actually called one of those guys, saying that it helps to call one, to actually interview one, to see if they'll do the job. The Cowboys didn't even do that. And I'm glad you guys are optimistic. I really am that you're optimistic. Keep in mind the Washington Command Skins have brand new ownership. Everything changed there. Under Dan Snyder, they were a train wreck and would still be a train wreck if Dan Snyder was still there. So that's a big if. Cowboys aren't changing ownership anytime soon. That's not going away. And again, I will say this. You guys are confident Dak Prescott will be back in all his glory. I'm not. I'm not sure Trayvon Diggs will be back in all his glory. Another serious injury for him. Then you've got DeMarvion Overshown, who was playing like a beast, who has a serious injury. There's a lot of problems with this Cowboys team. It's going to take more than 1 year to fix.
Those are fair points. But to your point, you just turned a third-round pick into DeMarvion Overshown. That can happen, right? Like, you can catch that lightning in a bottle.
Sure.
But you have to work. You have to do some things, and you provide yourself more room for error if you are aggressive in free agency, not just in signing players, but again, in the veteran trade market. You have to do that. I mean, you simply have to. And the Cowboys sitting by and doing nothing and putting all of the pressure on their players, and God forbid, Brian Schottenheimer, is not the way to go about it. And they'll lose and they'll fail, and all the national shows will pin it on all of them, and they'll forget that we were all killing the front office here in January and February. But, I mean, going about it this way, it's just hoping that maybe these small handful of players can be the lightning rod that, you know, helps you ride the wave of favor. Maybe it's your turn. Maybe you finally do pull it off. But these other teams put themselves in positions where they have that room for Jalen Hurts sucks, right? Like we all agree that he actually kind of sucks as a quarterback, but he can suck because his team is so good. So when he has those small handful of not sucking moments, it helps amplify the overall end game for Philadelphia. They will not put Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons in those situations. They demand that they be Superman so that they don't have to get off the couch and do any work themselves.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com here on the Blitz on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. RJ, with Shotty getting a second interview, I think we're all at the same level of you got to be kidding me. Almost said a bad word. It almost gives me a little bit more excitement for Kellen Moore. Like, man, could they bring in Kellen Moore? Like, I don't want, the idea there is like, I don't really know what Schotty's done for the last couple of years. You probably paid attention to his press conferences, but he didn't call plays. I don't know what he's done while in Dallas, except maybe butt heads with Mike McCarthy, according to some reports.
I mean, when you're the offensive coordinator and don't call plays, you handle install throughout the week, and
sure,
that's a real thing. But I mean, it's mostly nothing, to your point. And I don't know that I buy that this whole thing is so that we will approve of Kellen Moore or Jason Witten. Because I don't think the Cowboys care if we approve. I mean, they've already gone down this path.
They should do a Twitter poll.
Well, I think that's giving them more credit, right? Like actually believing that they have a plan that requires several steps. I don't think they're capable of that, to be quite honest. And you're right, though, Jason. Kellen Moore, or as a great person I know once called him Little Kellen Moore, or Jason Witten, at this point, I would take, and maybe they are counting on it. Maybe they are hoping that we just get beat down as a fan base. But like the idea of hiring Brian Schottenheimer and then, throwing Jason Witten out there is actually frustrating to me. Not because I'm mad at you being a dumb football team. You are, don't get me wrong. But it's because you're just wasting time. Like the Brian Schottenheimer shouldn't even exist. If you are so desperate to make Jason Witten your head coach because he is the guy you went on vacation with and he started more games or played more games than anybody in franchise history, whatever dumb way you want to cope yourself into believing this, then just do it, man. And I don't say just do it because I think it's an idea. I say just do it because I want to accelerate coping myself. I want to accelerate trying to convince myself that this is a good idea. I know it's not, but start the bad movie. It's Fast and the Furious 11 at this point in time. Just send the cars out there, drive real fast, go to outer space, bring the Rock in, Diesel. I don't care, whatever, but start the movie. I don't need this time wasted under Brian Schottenheimer.
Amen. Just hire Witten right now. Let's go.
I do want to ask you guys a question. I saw that apparently they're going to make an Ocean's 14. Do you think this is necessary, or have we gone too far?
Too far.
Too far. Too far.
I'd rather have Ocean's 97 than Brian Schottenheimer, to be clear.
Wow. I thought by the time we got through with this, RJ, you would have gotten it off your chest and be in a better mood, but you circle back with that. Like, this has done nothing to help your anger. On the day of your wife's birth, you need to get into a better mood so you can celebrate appropriately later today. And I just don't know if you're in the proper mindset for that.
I kind of now organize my hatred and just like disgust for life in general towards this team. And it used to feel unwarranted, but now I feel like they've earned every single bit of it. So this is therapy for me. I guess I'll talk to Pledge about the copay. But it's been nice and also horrible at the same time. And I am absolutely dreading the announcement that Brian Schottenheimer is the 10th coach in Dallas Cowboys franchise history. I mean, like the how this proud organization has fallen into the cellar, down the bedrock. I mean, it's just a real pity and a real shame.
I just hope the announcement doesn't start flowing out on Twitterverse in the middle of Cammie's birthday dinner. Do something special for her tonight.
Pissed at them. If it happens tonight, I mean, I'm going to be 10 times more pissed than I would be if they did it tomorrow morning.
Yep. Well, happy birthday to your wife, RJ.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, birthday dinner, no phones allowed, sir.
Yeah.
That's right. By the way, Interstellar, kind of a good movie in case nobody's ever said that before.
All right, good stuff.
Thanks.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond, online at buyersbarricades.com.